Draft speculation is heating up, and there's some interesting stuff being said about what the Mariners could do with the third overall pick. That and more coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, May 9th, 2025. This is Teddy Gonzalez and Colby Patnett for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, you can check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. So on today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about the draft. Keith Law wrote up his first mock draft over on The Athletic with an interesting nugget about the Mariners. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll get you set for this weekend series with the Toronto Blue Jays who are visiting Seattle. But first, we have some news, some pretty gnarly news for Trent Thornton. Hoping he's doing all right. Appendicitis for Trent, so he's landing on the 15-day IL. And Troy Taylor is back up, Colby. And it's been a rough go for Troy, his first two times up with the club this year after a pretty solid rookie debut last year. What do you make of what you've seen so far from Troy?
Yeah, it's mostly been control command problems for Troy. I think there was a bit of a unfair expectations or kind of a misread of who Troy Taylor was because he pitched pretty well at the end of last year. But this guy he's got good stuff, but it is not great. It is not elite. It is not what we would classify as filthy relative to other high leverage relievers, right? Like Munoz has something different from other high leverage relievers. Brash has something different. Mm. Taylor really doesn't. It's a pretty standard arsenal. And again, it's not that it's bad stuff, but it's a fastball and it's a slider or sweeper or whatever we're calling it now. So, and it's stuff that if he's on the corners and he can get hitters to expand the zone, it'll play really, really well late in games. But it's also stuff that if it's in the middle of the plate, it's going to get hit. And Taylor is susceptible to giving up home runs because he will leave pitches in the middle of the plate. And again, the stuff isn't so good. It's not so diverse that hitters can, just swing through fastballs down the middle of the plate. Like even Andres Munoz can't throw just fastballs straight down the middle of the plate and expect to get away with it every single time. But Munoz has way better stuff than Taylor does. So I think mostly Taylor's problem is just the control and the command. And, and we saw in his rehab assignments that, he was throwing a lot of balls. Not necessarily walking a lot of guys, but just, deep counts. And then he'd lay one in there and it'd get hit hard. And so that's kind of the thing with Taylor right now is that I think he's just in the middle of the plate and he just doesn't have that good of stuff that he can survive in the middle of the plate, especially at the big league level. He needs to be more on the corners, needs to be working up and down, but he doesn't have to be super fine. I mean, this isn't a guy like Emerson Hancock who has to have 55 control and command to even have a shot to survive in the big leagues. But he can't be 40 command, and keep him again. Remember, control is just the ability to throw strikes. Command is the ability to put the ball where you want it to be. Like hitting your spot is command. Mm-hmm. And so Taylor will throw strikes, but he'll throw them in the middle of the plate. And that's just a recipe for disaster for basically every pitcher in baseball, save for a few of the best of the best.
This kind of leads us to a much larger discussion here about the Mariners bullpen, just the state of it right now. I've been wanting to actually do a check-in on the bullpen here over the last few days, so this is as good of a time as any to do it. Mariners bullpen right now is still not really striking anyone out. They are 29th in K percentage. They're about middle of the pack in walk rate. The usage has gone down, though, as of late. They're now down to the 8th most innings pitched this year. They were hovering around second or third for a while. I think they were even first for a little bit of a time, but the Dodgers by far have thrown the most innings of any bullpen in baseball now. 164 innings for the Dodgers bullpen. Second place is the Marlins at 152 and a third. Yikes. They're also, I believe they're 9th or 10th in win probability added. I'm going to assume that Andres Munoz is carrying the load there and then some in that regard.
Yeah.
How do you kind of view the, especially now that Brash is back, how do you view the hierarchy of this Mariners bullpen? Obviously, it starts with Munoz and Spire, but after that point,
Yeah. I mean, even Spire's fallen back a little bit in his last couple of outings. Still pretty good, but not unhittable. And righties are giving him a little bit of an issue right now. So, yeah. But Spire's still number 2. Based on how Dan uses them, or based on how I would like rank them.
Just who do you trust right now the most?
Munoz, and then Spire. Yep. The number 3 is where it gets pretty interesting. I think you can make a real strong argument that it's Vargas, which, yeah, that's something we all saw coming. I think it's either Vargas or it's Snyder, to be quite honest. And Snyder hasn't been as good as he was last year, but he's still solid. Like he's
been hit or miss a lot this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely looks more like a middle guy, where last year he was used as kind of your second leverage guy for most of the year. But he looks more just kind of like a middle guy. But, you know, when Snyder doesn't throw well, it's usually he'll give up a run, not the 3-run homer like Trent Thornton. So
now with Snyder, though, it's like we're not seeing much swing and miss from Snyder right now. At least
the
in terms of the case.
The velocity's still down too from where it was last year. It's down about 2 miles per hour. It's slowly starting to tick back up there, but yeah, the extra velo is kind of a problem right now.
Yeah, it feels like when Colin has a good outing, he's getting ground ball outs or fly outs, pop ups, etc. It's not really getting strikeouts. And when he has a
reliever,
and then when he has a bad outing, he's typically hanging 1, maybe 2 breaking balls and getting punished for it.
It doesn't look to me though like he's broken, like beyond repair. Like Trent looks like he's broken. Snyder is fine. I think Vargas is probably number 3. It's tough to rank Brash right now just because he's just getting his feet wet again and all that. But
and we've only seen him twice.
Yeah, Brash is probably 4. And then I think I'd go Snyder, Bizzardo, somewhere in that range. What that's up next, and then who's left? Like Taylor's last.
Yeah.
Which he replaces Thornton, who was last. So
yeah.
I mean, by the way, Bizzardo, pretty good. I mean, he had the one blow up in Cincinnati. Other than that, pretty good.
Yeah. Legamina is the other guy.
Yeah, Legamina's 7th. So I think it's Munoz, Spire, Vargas, then probably Brash, Snyder, Bizzardo. You can kind of move those guys around, and Brash will probably end up being number 2 eventually, but right now. But yeah, so Munoz, Spire, Vargas, Brash, Snyder, Bizzardo, Legamina, Taylor is kind of how I would rank them right now.
Yeah, this bullpen really needs to add more swing and miss eventually, though.
Yeah, the bullpen's going to be a big thing, assuming that they're still in the race or that they're leading the race. In July, the bullpen is going to be an area that I think the Mariners are going to attack pretty aggressively, and that's good for a couple reasons. One of which is that you can get good quality bullpen guys for relatively good prices.
Yeah. If you go after the elite guys, it's going to cost you a leg. But
right, if you go after Ryan Helsley, like that might cost you Michael Arroyo plus. But if you just want like a Jimmy Garcia type, then
it'll cost you the RJ Shreks of the world.
Right. He technically cost him Class A, I believe, but
was that the Class A trade? I can't remember.
Either way, that's the Shreks of the world. So it's not going to cost you a ton. And again, they have a pretty good eye for bullpen talent. So, but yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of great options down in AAA right now either, like regarding the bullpen. So it does feel like at some point they're going to have to go out and make a, sizable trade to add some swing and miss to their bullpen. And Ryan Helsley's the guy that is going to get mentioned a lot, especially if the Cardinals kind of stay hovering around 500. He's a rental, but you look at what Tanner Scott went for last year, that's still a lot to give up. So I don't think the Mariners will go that high end with a reliever. But I do think that they'll be shopping for maybe a couple Garcia types at the deadline. But we'll see. We're still a couple months away, and maybe Colin Snyder finds what he was last year, and maybe Brash gets back to where he was, and all of a sudden we're like, yeah, you could add a bullpen arm, but it's not mandatory. Right now, this team could really use another good bullpen arm.
Yeah. And Brash, even if he's just 80 to 85% of himself, that should add some more swing and miss to the bullpen for sure. All right. So also coming up here in a couple of months is the 2025 MLB draft. Pretty big one for the Mariners. They have the 3rd overall pick. And we just got a really interesting mock draft from Keith Law of The Athletic. We're going to dive into that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Trade Coffee and Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee, crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast you'll love. So I took Trade's quiz. It only took a minute, and the first bag they sent me was spot on. The coffee was fresh, smelled amazing, and honestly, kind of ruined grocery store coffee for me in the best way. And if the first match isn't perfect, Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your 1-month trial. drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Play high quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. And if you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Again, that's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Some of you have been asking about where the Mariners postcast is. It was supposed to premiere earlier this week, but things got delayed. So now we have a new startup date. This one is confirmed this time. Anders and Chris will be going live for their first show this upcoming Monday, May the 12th, after the Mariners-Yankees game. So be sure to check that out. All right, so the MLB draft is coming up here in a couple months. Mariners have the 3rd overall pick, and we've got a pretty interesting mock draft here from Keith Law of The Athletic. It's just a pure first-round mock draft, just the first 27 picks of the draft, so no mock here for the Mariners comp round A selection at pick number 35. But let's go over what Keith had to say about what the Mariners might do at pick number 3. He has the Mariners taking Aiva Arquette out of Oregon State, former University of Washington product, who transferred to OSU. He says, I think the Mariners' focus is on the big 4 of Aiva Arquette, Jamie Arnold, lefty pitcher from Florida State, Liam Doyle, lefty pitcher out of Tennessee, and Ethan Holiday, prep infielder, brother of Jackson Holiday, son of Matt Holiday. And they may be less inclined to take Holiday than the others because they're trying to win now. I've heard they want a pitcher I've heard Arquette doesn't get past them, and clearly both of those things can't really be true at the same time, right? That would be correct. But that's a pretty interesting quote there from Keith Law. What do you make of it?
Yeah. First things first. If you guys want to check out the mock draft, it is not behind a paywall, so you can go do that. But yeah, I think a lot of this is look. Keith is really plugged in to the game, and I think he's the best in the business at this in particular, like gathering information on where prospects could go. But we should also point out we're 2 months away from the draft. A lot will change. A lot can change. And that the information Keith has today might not be the information Keith gets in a week, a month, whatever. So we need to take all the information we have here with, a grain of salt. Like there is it's not set in stone just because it was said today or yesterday. But yeah, that being said, Keith's really dialed in here and he knows tons of GMs and all the scouting directors, and he usually pulls these really good quotes.
He was the first guy that first prospect guy that I saw in on Logan Evans, actually talk about Logan Evans as a legitimate prospect in the Mariners system.
Yeah. So yeah, he's very good. So when he tells you I've heard this, he's heard it.
And the reason that I bring that up is he's definitely dialed in when it comes to Mariners stuff.
Yeah. So now the tricky part here is what is he being told and what is he kind of speculating on?
Sure.
And so I think when he says I've heard, I think that's a pretty good indicator of what we should take as this is being said by other, front offices, other scouting directors, and possibly by the Mariners themselves. So to me, the part that is actually news and reportable, however you want, whatever, we're getting into semantics here. Yeah. I've heard they want a pitcher, and I've heard that Arquette doesn't get past them. So very clearly, this tells me that as of today, that the Mariners are going to go college. And that the fact that Law right now is taking Arquette, even though he's heard they want a pitcher, and that Jamie Arnold is still on the board in his mock here. I think that means he puts a little more weight in the Arquette quote, that Arquette won't get past them, which leads me to speculate that might be coming from the Mariners side of things. So we'll see again where it's all at. But yeah, I think that's pretty interesting that he seems to have listed a big four here, and none of them are Seth Hernandez, who is a prep righty who has been linked to the Mariners recently and is a potential 1-1 guy in this draft and might have the highest upside of anybody in this draft. It's kind of the one threshold the Mariners haven't breached yet. They haven't taken a prep pitcher in the first round. I don't think ever in the Jerry Dipoto era, certainly. They've taken them in the high second round. They've taken first round talents and paid them over slot in the second, but they've
Sam
never
Carlson, Ryan Sloan. Yeah.
Right. But they've never spent, they've drafted high school catchers, which is something that's you're not usually doing in the first round. So, yeah, I think this is interesting because he chose Arquette, even though he heard they want a pitcher and Arnold was on the board. So I think that tells me that he's putting more stock, which would lead me to believe that team that he's hearing that from is more closely associated with the Mariners, which could be the Mariners. But yeah, Arquette would be an interesting pick, especially with Arnold still on the board. I know Ty and I are definitely still on the Jamie Arnold bandwagon, but we are certainly not displeased, I don't think, if the Mariners take Arquette at 3. He's a really good prospect.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Keith didn't mention, guys like Cade Anderson or Billy Carlson, some other guys that we've seen mocked here and there to the Mariners as potential underslot options for them at number 3. The thing to keep in mind here is that the Mariners do have the highest bonus pool of any team heading into this draft, somewhere around $17 million. I think they cleared the $17 million threshold by maybe 100,000 or so. Can't remember exactly what the number is, but still. So they really don't have to go underslot here unless they really want to go huge in the comp round A and second round, even maybe the third round, depending on how they disperse that money. But it seems like they're well positioned here to just go chalk at number 3 with whoever they feel that is.
Yeah, and I mean, you're probably going to go under slot at number 3 anyways, even if you take a player who is like
Mhm.
Arquette. Like he's probably not going to get slot, just because the slot number for the third pick is like higher than the highest bonus ever given out to anybody, even
Mhm.
in like a one. Even the number 1 overall picks don't get, full slot. They get less than that just because, again, they're the number 1 overall pick. They're not doing any better, so they don't really have a lot of leverage to say I want full slot, especially if they're college kids. So they're probably going to save some money on the first pick regardless. So it doesn't make sense to go aggressively under, to me
Mhm.
at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Arquette is just kind of a really good option because you're probably going to save, I don't know, 300, 400 grand under slot anyways. But he might be, arguably he might be the best player in this draft. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Arquette could be the number 1 pick, or the best player in the draft
Mhm.
5 years from now, and he's going to be relatively close to the big leagues. He's a middle infielder who can definitely play shortstop. He can play second. He can play third, and he's 6'5", 220. Like, he's a big
Yeah.
dude who maintained his athleticism, and he has power, and he's producing at Oregon State, which is a premier program right now. And yeah, there's
Yep.
some things to clean up, but there's not a Bryce Harper in this year's draft. There's not a Steven Strasburg in this year's draft. So
Yeah.
the fact that you can get a high quality middle infielder who's probably going to be drafted and ready for Arkansas like the same day, or at least pretty close to that. I don't know if they put him there, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is a guy who could be your starting third baseman in theory as soon as next year. And so, yeah, I think that's a really interesting pick, and I'm pleased to hear that the Mariners, at least right now, are being linked heavily to Arquette, and that the idea is that Arquette won't get past them,
Yeah.
um, unless maybe the reason that law has him is because the Mariners want to take Doyle, but in his mock, Doyle went number 2, so they had to pivot here.
And maybe
Maybe
they
this
like
just
him more
means
than Arnold.
Arnold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe that's what this means. But again, we're 2 months away.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is definitely an interesting little tidbit, a little nugget here, as we kind of get closer and closer. And it certainly is one to keep in mind as we dissect more of these draft prospects.
Yeah. So we're about 2 months away, pretty much close to the date now, away from the draft. So we're going to start ramping up draft coverage here on Locked On M's, because it's just such a special draft for this small club, with the number 3 pick, but also pick 35. This is going to be a huge one for them, and making what is already a really good farm system even better, which creates a very interesting conversation around the trade deadline as well. But we're going to get some people on here who know these guys a bit more than we, to tell you about them and get you ready for the draft. So be on the lookout for that. All right, we are going to switch things up, talk a little bit about the Mariners Blue Jays series starting tonight at T-Mobile Park in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I mean, think about what you could do with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You could join me on the Knicks bandwagon all the way to the finals, or bet on Anthony Edwards to eliminate another legend in the playoffs. And if you're new to FanDuel, now is the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. The Mariners are already about to wrap up their season series with the Toronto Blue Jays. Jays coming to Seattle for 3, and the Mariners are catching them at a pretty good time. Things are kind of going sideways for the Jays at the moment. They did not have a particularly good series. They won last night, but they didn't have a particularly good series against the Angels. And now they might be down Andres Jimenez, who's been dealing with a quad thing. They haven't made a roster move yet, but infield prospect Michael Stefanik met them in Seattle last night. So I don't know if that's on a taxi squad basis or what, but it's possible the Mariners might miss Jimenez, who, I mean, he's been bad this year though, 68 WRC plus, so that might not be a huge loss really for the Jays in the grand scheme of things. I mean, most of this team not really hitting that well at the moment. Still not really hitting for any power to speak of. Vlad only has 4 home runs. Springer's still been pretty good. They also have Dalton Varsho back. Finally, we didn't see him when the Mariners were in Toronto. I'm pretty sure he got activated like right after that series. Tonight's pitching matchup, Luis Castillo against Kevin Gossman. That's by far the best pitching matchup in this series. Tomorrow, it's going to be Bowden Francis against Logan Evans, making his 3rd career start. Been kind of a mixed bag for Logan so far. And then Bryce Miller on Sunday. We'll see how that goes against Jose Urania, who apparently is still in the league and is pitching for the Blue Jays. This is definitely a good opportunity for the Mariners to extend their series win streak. But it all comes down to the pitching, and it all comes down to what you get out of Logan Evans tomorrow, and more importantly, Bryce Miller on Sunday. So tell me a little bit about what you've taken away from Logan Evans's first 2 starts.
You know,
been a mixed bag overall.
It's really been, he had the one terrible inning in that in Texas, but that's something that, we saw a little bit in spring training too, is that when the ball starts to roll against him a little bit, he doesn't quite have
and that's a good way to word it, by the way. I think there were only 2 hard hit balls in that inning.
It was, Williamson didn't make a play that he probably should have, and then that ballooned, and like, I don't think he's been bad. I don't think he's been anything like that. If the Blue Jays start to gain some momentum, or anybody, I mean, this weekend it's the Blue Jays. Next time it'll be the Yankees,
Padres.
Oof. But yeah, so either way, but if they start to put some guys on and they put pressure on him, I do wonder if he can pitch around that and kind of grind his way through. It's a skill, and it's not that he can't do it. It's just that we haven't seen him really do it. Did it once against the Marlins, so we'll see. Obviously, pitching at home certainly is going to benefit him. I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag for Logan. Definitely a really good sweeper, but I'm just not sure we're getting enough fastball value out of him right now to feel good that he can pitch through this lineup. And again, it's not a juggernaut lineup. I think we look at this Blue Jays team and we know that they are fine. They're a fine team that's not playing well right now, but they're just fine. They're not untalented. It's Bichette, it's Vlad, it's Santander, now it's Varsho. Springer's obviously still capable of getting hot, but it just kind of looks like, this is a team that in theory lines up pretty well. They're pretty right-handed heavy. The sweeper should play very well against all the righties in this lineup. They're at T-Mobile Park. The Blue Jays aren't really playing particularly well right now. So in theory, this should be a pretty good matchup for Evans. He doesn't over rely on the fastball. So there are a lot of positives, but it's just one of those things, it's 3 starts in. We're not really sure who Logan Evans is quite yet as a major league pitcher. And there's still a wide variety of outcomes possible when he takes the mound. And so it'd be great if we could start to see a little more swing and miss out of him. I know it's not a huge part of his game. It'd be great if we could see the velo be 94, 95, 96 instead of 92, 93. We know he's capable of that as well. But we'll just have to wait and see. The sweeper is going to be the key here in this outing. But, the sweeper, the fastball is also always a key. And I just don't know if Logan Evans has enough value out of that pitch. But we'll see. It certainly is possible he goes out there and he spins a quality start for you. I think it's also possible that he, struggles early and he kind of has to grind through a couple of innings and try his best to keep a team in the game, kind of like Brian Wu did yesterday. So I don't know if he's capable of doing that as Wu did, but I think that's probably a fair expectation, is that he's probably going to have a bad inning, and then we'll have to see if he can get out of it without, kind of torpedoing the Mariners' chances of winning the game, which he wasn't able to do granted, against, Jacob deGrom. So, yeah, we'll see. But I don't have super high hopes for Evans, but I also don't necessarily think that I'd be shocked if he threw a pretty good ball game. I'm not quite sure where I am at right now on Logan Evans after 2 outings.
Yeah.
So I think tonight's game is pretty darn important.
Yeah. It's both of those final 2 matchups are kind of just up in the air. I mean, like, you should have the advantage on Sunday, but we've seen how much Miller has struggled, and we also saw how much contact this Blue Jays lineup was able to make against Mariners pitchers back in Toronto 3 weeks ago, particularly against Wu and Gilbert. I mean, even Castillo as well, with how much they were getting on base. I mean, it felt like there was a runner on second automatically every single inning against Castillo. But I mean, all the foul balls against Wu, I don't think Wu even had a strikeout until the 5th inning in that game, the Friday game, the series opener. Gilbert was only able to go 4, right? 4 or 5.
4 2/3.
Yeah, 4 2/3. Like, they fouled off a ton of pitches. They made a ton of hard contact. They weren't hitting the ball over the wall, but they made a ton of hard contact off of Wu. 14 hard hit balls, I believe, off of Wu.
Yeah.
Which is why the other day when we were talking about his start, so I was like, yeah, his start on Wednesday was statistically his worst start. But I think his worst start of the year was in Toronto with all the hard contact he gave up. So yeah, with Miller and how little he's missing bats right now, this is kind of a bad matchup unless he's able to figure something out here.
Sure. I mean, there's also the possibility that George Kirby's it, and the Blue Jays are making so much contact early in counts, but that's not good quality contact. That
right. They're just hitting guys.
Goes 7 innings on 75 pitches, and you're like, oh,
sure, yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed bag when you're as aggressive as the Blue Jays are. But I will say the Blue Jays pretty aggressive, but they also just foul off a lot of pitches when you get to 2 strikes. So. Yeah, it's kind of a weird team. And because we're so early in the year, we're still not 100% sure who the Blue Jays are. I don't think that they feel like a 500 club to me. And right now they have bullpen issues, and you're not facing Barrios or Bassett, who are probably their 2 best guys right now, but Gausman can still pitch, and he's probably going to strike out a ton of Mariners tonight. That's just kind of the way it goes. But you can get to him. You certainly can get to him. And then Francis, good quality pitcher, but certainly not an ace, or certainly nothing you haven't encountered before. So, the offense I think is probably going to score, continue to score 4 or 5 runs. And if they do that, then I think they have a good shot to win this series. But this is kind of it's not really a trap series, but you have the Yankees and the Padres coming up next. And
like, you need to take care of business here before you go into those series. Yeah.
Right. But you're also, going into the series throwing arguably your 2 worst starters right now, back to back. So
yeah,
this is not a easy series by any stretch. And it does feel like if you want to keep, your head above water over the next 9 days, it needs to start with you finding a way to win this series, because so you don't have to rely on, beating the Yankees and the Padres in back-to-back series. Those are 2 of the best teams in baseball, and they'll be fun matchups because you're also one of the best teams in baseball right now. But this is why you want to get tonight. I think it's really important for you to win tonight's game, so you don't have to rely on Evans and Miller both putting up good starts on back-to-back days against a ball club that's a bit of a tough matchup for your rotation where it's currently at.
All right, that is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.